Well, welcome. If you look up the big screen, my name is Sam. I'm also known as Swag Lord in the community. And a lot of people know me by Swag Lord. And this is Mark. He's relatively new to the community, or at least active in the community. We are from the San Antonio Spice Corps. So I'm the leader of the San Antonio Spice Corps, and Mark is a new member. So over the course of about a year or so, he's been coming to our Spice Corps. And take no offense, but he is a marketing professional.
Don't hold it against me, please.
So last year during the draft talk, one of the, 2019, this year, draft talk, one of the quarterbacks, they dug through his Twitter and he found out he said some racist comments when he was 16, 17, 18 years old, 15 years old on his Twitter feed, and they were holding it against him now at 22. And so I asked Mark here, I was like, hey, how does he come over something like that? Right? I mean, he's going to lose millions of dollars because of something he said when he was 15, right? I'm 39. If half the stuff was recorded when I was 15, I mean, most of us can say that probably in this room, that if they had actual records of stuff that we did, we would not be where we are today, right? So, but in today's society of social media and quick information and Facebook and Twitter, how does someone overcome that? And so Mark and I started talking about that, and I started asking him questions as a marketing professional on how do we as IT professionals handle our personal brand, right? Do I need to go out and build a logo? Do I need to go out and have all the social media stuff for me? Because at some point in our careers, we're going to come to a point where we got hacked, or our company got ransomware, or, and what's going to happen is we're going to be the people who are going to have to fall on the sword because we didn't do it. Even though someone clicked on some link and we have all this neat training and all we do best we can, it's still going to be our fault. How do we deal with that? How do we overcome that black mark, right? And so I started talking to Mark about it, and I was like, hey, I want to do this for our Spice Corps. At the time, this was going on. At the time, we had several people who were just out of a job, several people who were looking for jobs, several people who want to move on in the career. And if you're like me, how many people have an updated resume? Wow, that's better. How many people don't? When was the last time you did one? I've been in my job for 10 years. I haven't touched it in 10 years. So I was talking to Mark about that. And he was like, okay, we can do that. And he emailed me about a week later. He's like, how about if we do a presentation at Spice World? I was like, the time to submit it is a week away. He's like, it's okay, we'll do it. I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know if he knew this, but I knew that the session would have to be voted on before it actually went to Spice World. And so I was like, okay, we won't make it past that. I was wrong. We're here. Mark and I have collaborated on this for a while now. Collaborated is the true answer. Mark did most of the work. We got together first couple times once it was official. We're going to Spice World, talking about what we want to do, how we want to do it. He's like, okay, I got it. I'll let you know. About a month and a half ago, I was like, I haven't heard anything from you, Mark. What am I supposed to do? He's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. So he's done the work. He's put the effort into it. I've collaborated. I pushed him to do this. So I'm excited to learn what he has to say. I'm probably going to interject some questions myself because this gentleman over here was like, "What are we doing, right? Well, do we need to have a personal brand? I don't know." But I hope to find out, and that's the reason why I've asked Mark. I asked him questions, and I keep asking him questions. So this is Mark. My name's Sam. Go ahead, Mark. You can take over.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it, and thanks everybody for showing up. I'm super happy to see a room pretty full of people. I had this vision of like two people, sitting on the back row, and that would be it for personal branding at an IT conference. So it really is good to see everybody. Let me blow this up a little bit for myself. My eyes aren't what they used to be.
Those things in your pocket are for black. Yeah, you can put those those on.
Yeah, but they're reading glasses, and unless I'm going to stand right here, and that's not going to go over very well with the audience. So I have to actually stand back here. Whoa, that may work. Okay, in all honesty, I've never really cared for the term personal branding. And I'm embarrassed to admit it now because I am, among other things, a branding professional. And I don't mean I'm a personal branding professional per se, but that's what's kind of embarrassing about it, is that it turns out that the idea of brand applies equally to a brand of any sort. So I can't even explain what branding is without explaining exactly what personal branding is. But yeah, I've not taken it seriously. To me, the phrase personal branding has always elicited thoughts of selfishness or fakeness. And not long before I began preparing this talk, just really a few months ago, hearing the phrase personal branding was enough to make me feel like throwing up in my mouth. I just thought that there was this inherent inauthenticity in the phrase. I mean, to be authentic, all we have to do is be ourselves, right? And to be ourselves, we don't need a branding strategy, do we? But that was before I met my friend and fellow Spicehead, Sam Pless, a.k.a. Swag Lord. I was getting to know Sam through Spice Corps when one day, I think it was back in March actually, he began asking me these questions, and he expressed over the course of a couple of conversations that he would meet fellow Spiceheads or other IT professionals who were looking for a new job, or maybe they wanted a promotion, maybe they wanted a raise. And they could be brilliant IT professionals, he was saying, but they weren't necessarily, in his mind, preparing themselves, giving themselves every advantage for the opportunities that were ahead of them. So I guess he saw in our acquaintance an opportunity to seek input from someone who claimed to know something about marketing. So that's how our personal branding conversation started. And I came to appreciate the depth and the breadth of Sam's questions and his commentary, and most of all his curiosity. And when he asked me whether I might be willing to present these ideas at a Spice Corps meetup, I really got excited because I was starting to think something about, maybe there was something here to talk about. And then it wasn't long after that the idea came up to talk here, and Sam, here we are, amazing. So, well, you made it happen, so thank you. So my perspective on personal branding has shifted considerably, which I think is a positive development, given that I hope none of you came to watch somebody throw up in their mouth. That would be kind of gross. So admittedly, I'm still not overly fond of the phrase branding. I don't think I'm alone on that. Even though I've operated a marketing agency for 18 years now, I'm no stranger to the word. And one reason I think is that branding, as in the act of branding, it sort of implies that we have this control over our brand. So we do branding, and then we end up with this brand. But it's not exactly how it works. I mean, we can choose to undertake any number of branding initiatives. And those initiatives may help shape the future of our brand, but we don't really control it any more than we control Mother Nature. I mean, just ask companies like Uber or Wells Fargo or a host of any other companies that have experienced this misfortune of not being able to control the brand. Another reason I don't like the phrase branding is that by itself, it just kind of seems hollow. And in fact, I think a lot of people think of branding, maybe marketing as a whole, as putting lipstick on a pig. And it reminds me of something that I may have heard back in my East Texas home growing up. What, that pig right there? Well, he ain't all that, but let's make him look good before we take him to the auction at least. Honey, bring me some of that lipstick, what you got in there? So I'd say, okay, Mom, I'm coming. That was a joke, kind of. Anyway. Another reason I don't really like the idea of branding or like the phrase branding is that it just doesn't really seem to, seems to be able to agree on exactly what it means. And I think that's a good sign that there's a problem with the word itself. But I want us to get clear on the meaning of branding today. Because now I believe that personal branding is a topic worth understanding. When you hear the phrase personal branding, it shouldn't provoke mouth vomit. It shouldn't make you think of manipulation. It's not lipstick on a pig. So let's start with what we can more easily define. Let's drop the ing and just look at the word brand itself. So marketers will often define brand as a promise. And while that is absolutely a legitimate definition, it's just abstract and ambiguous enough to make it hard to talk about. It's poetic, but it's kind of lofty language. And for some, including myself, it makes it really hard to be actionable about it. So what if we appended the word delivered to say that a brand is a promise delivered? I think that's not only a little bit more precise, but it gets closer to a practical definition, because delivered is in the mind of the customer. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say that the floor manager at a local manufacturing company feels like her IT department is not following through on their promise of 99% uptime. It doesn't matter what the IT director thinks about this, because if his customer isn't happy, then his brand is going to take a hit. And that's what I mean when I suggest that the word delivered is in the mind of the customer. Let's look at it a little bit different way. The easiest way I know to talk about branding is to substitute the word perception for brand. So our personal brand is just how our audience perceives us. They can perceive us negatively, they can be indifferent about us, or if we're lucky, they may perceive us in a positive way. On the other hand, they may have no perception of us whatsoever if they've never heard of us, they've never met us, they've never seen our work. So if brand is perception, then what is perception exactly? If we look more closely, we might see that we can break it down into two components, the two R's, reach and reputation. Most simply represented here on this matrix. So reach, on the horizontal axis here, refers to the connection between you and members of your target audience, members of people that you would like to know and have know you. We measure reach not only by the number of people with whom you can connect, but also by the likelihood that when you do connect with them or when you attempt to connect with them, that they will actually hear you. So think of your followers on Twitter or your Facebook friends. Arguably, they are part of your reach. So you post a funny video of a cat. How many followers of yours do you think will actually see that video? And of those, how many will actually take the time to watch the video and register some sort of emotional connection to it, some emotional response? So that is indicative of your reach, at least as it relates to that audience. So reach is the part of perception, the part of brand that says how much attention your audience is willing to give you. Reputation, on the vertical axis, is the emotional response elicited when your audience thinks about you, when you make that connection. If you're known for your daily cat videos, if you've built a strong following of cat lovers based on the fact that you post a hilarious or a cute cat video every day, then maybe you have earned a warm place in their hearts. Maybe they would miss you if you stopped posting. The nature of your audience's emotional response, in this case a warm, fuzzy feeling, and the intensity of that response, those are indicative of the strength of your reputation. So reputation is multifaceted, but what we're generally aiming for is trust. So another way to think of reputation.
Mine work? Yeah, here. Hi. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
It's plugged in. Thank you, Sam. Awesome. We're going places. Okay, can you hear me? Does that work? Okay. So, another way to think about reputation is just how much your audience trusts you. And I got too many buttons and... Okay, so if I have a good reputation, so I'm high on this vertical axis, but my reach is limited by the fact that I just don't get out much, my brand's not really not providing a lot of value to me or my audience. I've earned trust, but I've not earned much in the way of attention. If I have great reach, so I got a lot of followers out there, maybe I participate in regular networking events, I've got an industry-related blog, a decent social media following, and I chair a committee for a local IT professionals association. If I do all of this, but I piss off half of the people I meet with my arrogance, or if I come across as an opinionated jerk on my blog and in my social media posts, if I don't follow through on my committee work, then I don't have much of a reputation there. So again, my brand is relatively weak. I've got to have both reputation and reach in order to strengthen my brand. So brand is comprised of this collective perception of our audience. Branding, then, with an ing, branding is the process through which we envision and articulate whose attention is important to us and the promise we're going to make to earn that attention and trust. Branding is defining our desired audience and our ideals as they relate to that audience, along with the value that we promise to deliver to them. It's the preparation. It's the preparation for the conscious effort to reach our audience and build trust with it. That's branding. But who cares, or why should I care? I mean, intuitively, we can think that maybe it's a good thing for people to like us. Most of us want people to like us, generally speaking, right? But just because we want people to like us doesn't mean it's really worth doing something about. Tonight at the bar, I may want another drink, but that doesn't make it a good idea. I guess it depends on how many I've had already. So let's start with a premise then. Each of us wants to affect some change in this world. It may be a job promotion, or a raise, or security training for our end users. It may be something as ambitious as putting an end to malicious hacking. Whatever change you're trying to affect, your pursuit will be facilitated by the level of influence that you command. If change is our mission, we benefit from having influence, and influence is impacted by perception. Perception is just another word for brand. So do you see then the relationship between our desire for change and the strength of our brand? That's why branding is important. That's why we all should care. Fundamentally, branding answers two questions related to the change that we want to make happen. Who is it for, and what value does it create for them? And that's it. That's branding. So being conscious of your brand, or even being proactive in trying to shape it, it's not vanity or greed or inauthenticity. It's a wise recognition, in my opinion, of the subtle but sweeping forces that kind of determine our place in society. For clients of our agency, one question that can arise early in the process of a brand strategy is this one. How many different brands can we and should we develop and support? So one of my clients is a value-added reseller, a VAR that is dipping its feet for the first time into the world of managed services. They're debating whether this managed security services practice that they're spinning up warrants a separate brand. The two lines of business, the value-added...
Your mic's a little low.
Oh, now that's cool. IT guy. All right. Is that better? Thanks. All right. So they've got this value-added reseller business, and they've got this new managed security services practice. It doesn't really exist yet, but it's coming. So do they want to create two separate brands for that? Well, at the same time, they're also introducing to the market this new employment model. They're trying to attract more and better talent, right? So this is something entirely different that they want to publicize. Well, that's a whole different audience. That's a whole different value proposition. So this is a real question. Can we actually wrap these different value propositions up and go to diverse audiences with one brand? Well, I don't know. I'm a fan of the idea of simplicity when it comes to branding. Let's have one good, strong value proposition, and let's target one audience, if possible. And by that criteria, then, I'm going to say let's go with separate brands for this client. But at the same time, I realize that there are economies of scale involved, real economies of scale involved in wrapping different products, value propositions up under one brand. It's a lot of work to support multiple brands. So for us as individuals, we also need a strategy, and we kind of face a similar conundrum. So I believe that every one of you can do anything that you put your mind to, but you can't do everything. In personal branding, the impact of this reality is that you cannot be everything to everyone. We don't have time to learn everything and to take that vast knowledge and with it serve everyone. It sounds obvious, but a lot of individuals and companies suffer from that delusion. We must make choices regarding what change we want to offer the world and what we will enlist, who we will enlist to bring this change about. And so, fortunately, the combination of your DNA and your experience ensures that you can offer something new and different. A different way of looking at a problem, a different way of arriving at a solution. Which problems are even worth your time? And that difference should be the foundation of your personal branding effort. If you want to affect change, and if you can't articulate how you are meaningfully different, then identifying and articulating that difference should be your primary focus. Now, while this branding effort may start with identifying how you're different, it's not to imply that your brand is all about you. And one of the most common mistakes that I see companies make is they paint themselves at the center of their client's universe. We provide the best solutions. We have the best technology. We have the most effective technical support. But here's the problem, that when companies and individuals position themselves as the hero of their client's story, then they alienate themselves from those that they seek to serve. Zig Ziglar, a hero of mine, if you will, says it best when he says, "You can get anything in life if you want, if you help enough other people get what they want." And the world's best brands do not only this, not only help solve the problems shared by their customers, but they actually help guide them towards success. The audience, the customer, is always the hero of the story. And a trusted brand is just a resource that helps guide them in their quest. And at its best, a brand may even paint the picture of what is possible, what life can be like, or as the customer sees it, what can I be like upon my transformation? Even when we refer to public figures, celebrity brands, as our hero, that's not exactly what we mean. I used to be a big fan of professional golf, and I would watch every televised tournament that I could get access to. I mean, watching those guys, I wasn't a great golfer, but watching those guys made me feel what was possible for myself. And when this guy, Tiger Woods, came along, it was like inspiration on steroids. We knew he would win when he walked onto the golf course, or we felt sure he would. And for those of us mesmerized by this young kid with golf clubs, he helped us see what was possible in ourselves. I bet it probably I said more than once that Tiger was my hero, but what I really meant was, hey, I'm a hero in the making. And Tiger is just showing me what it takes to get there, that it's even possible. And so, folks, your audience wants and needs that from you. Do you want to make change? I think all of us do. And it's your mission to find people that can benefit from that change and then show them how to do it. People not so different than yourself maybe, but perhaps don't see as clearly the path to success as you do. So your brand, if successful, will do this. And this is like the 4 steps to branding right here. Help them articulate their problem. Give them a plan for overcoming it. Call them to action. And guide them through to success. So conscious personal branding prepares you, the individual, for connecting with your audience. It equips you with a value proposition and then some parameters for identifying your customers. But until you begin delivering on that promise, your audience has little reason to pay attention to you. And that's where marketing comes in. Marketing helps bring your brand to life, and this is even your personal brand, through sharing your value in a relevant way. It connects your brand ideals with your intended audience. In marketing, our goal is to create and share value. In business as a whole, we set a price and currency for our value. In marketing, though, we hope to exchange value for attention and trust. It can seem as though we're giving things away in marketing, t-shirts and koozies, a 30-day trial, a white paper, a webinar, but that's not the intent. The hope is that there's an exchange taking place, one which we provide something in value in exchange for our audience's attention and trust. Marketers would refer to that exchange as a touch point. It's an opportunity for engagement. And that's what marketing is. It's about identifying, developing, and enhancing these touch points. It's about combining them to create a cohesive customer journey. So you know your audience if you've done an effective exercise on personal branding at least. You've arrived at that. You know your audience, your heroes to be, and you know the need that you as the guide will fulfill. You know the problems that you want to help them solve. You know how this plays out in success for them. So now, what can you do? What value can you provide to begin earning the attention and trust of these future customers? Value, you say? In marketing, value could take the form of the product itself, a 30-day trial. I mean, Spiceworks gives away their software indefinitely. Why? I mean, what does that do for them? Well, among other things, it does what any marketer would hope to accomplish. They're winning the attention and trust of their audience, and in this case, it's a community of IT professionals. In marketing, more often than not, value comes through content, some of which shows up in my inbox every day in the form of your daily dose of tech news in brief. This is content that directly supports the promise of the Spiceworks brand, which is to make me a more effective IT professional. Content is powerful. It can educate, entertain, challenge, inspire. People ask me sometimes, can I share somebody else's content? Is that a good idea? Well, absolutely. As long as you're not violating any copyright laws, you can share someone else's content if you think you're providing value. But from time to time, you might want to think about creating your own content that embodies your unique value proposition and your perspective. So what about jumping into a discussion on the Spiceworks online community and offering a helpful tip or your perspective? That's content, and that's valuable. And the Spiceworks community is just one example of a channel where you might find members of your audience. But regardless of who your intended audience is, there's probably somewhere you can find them online or otherwise, and interact with them. So Google does a great job of getting content in front of people that are searching for it. The lesson there is to publish content that addresses what your audience might be searching for. That's the magic behind the rise of blogging, which is still one of my favorite ways to create and syndicate value. There's social media, of course, and I'm personally a proponent of maintaining an up-to-date LinkedIn profile, Sam. That provides value to people who might want to know a little bit more about me. Outside of Spiceworks, there are any number of online chat rooms and forums that you could leverage to reach an audience. And some people curate an email list over time and send out a monthly newsletter. Some people like to give talks, and they manage to find themselves opportunities to get on stage in front of their audience. At the agency, we often make the point with our clients, one of the points I think I've already made today, that brand is something that they don't control. It's not that we don't recognize the significant impact they can have by what they do through their marketing, but marketing is just an attempt to provide value to an intended audience, to engage with them in the hopes that we're going to earn their attention and trust. We pull levers, so to speak, but the result is really never known ahead of time. You ever seen this attraction at a carnival or an amusement park where you shoot water into the mouth of the clown and you're trying to get the balloon to expand and inflate and then pop? Well, that's something of a metaphor for how marketing works. So when you're engaged in this contest, you can't think about the prize that you're going to get because you have to focus intently on getting that water into the mouth of the clown. And it takes 100% focus. It's all you can do. And suddenly you become aware that you've let your aim drift off to the right a little bit and you're wasting this precious water, and pop! Another balloon down the way pops and you've missed out. I mean, even if your brain were capable of thinking about something else at the same time, it wouldn't do you any good. That's marketing. The prize for playing skillfully is hopefully this attention and trust that we've been talking about, what we refer to in the business as brand equity. But if we focus our attention on measuring the strength of our brand all the time, counting our gold coins, if you will, we necessarily lose focus on those things we can do, that the only things that we can do to actually impact those outcomes that we seek. So I have my team at the agency focus not so much on these outcomes, but firmly on the outputs, the deliverables and artifacts, the content, the value that we and our clients are providing and leveraging in the pursuit of their brand dominance. So outputs, the things that we do control, come about through various what we call practices at the agency. Through our practices, we create what we hope has value for our client's audience. And we attempt to get this value into their hands, and through these processes, strive to win their hearts and minds, their attention and their trust. So I'm 4 years old, blue shirt right there, under a blue sky on a warm spring Texas afternoon, and my brother and I are loading equipment into the back of my dad's 63 Plymouth Fury. It's a family camping trip to White River Reservoir. In the kitchen, I hear my dad. He's gathering bags that he's going to use for discarding trash at the campsite. And he says, "We're going to leave the campsite as good as we find it." I had to think about that. "We're going to leave the campsite as good as we find it." And then my mom shoots back to him. I hear, "Well, why don't you leave it better than you find it?" My mom and dad were not big campers, and in fact, my mom never went on a family camping adventure that didn't involve a real bed. But nevertheless, in that moment, she had a big impact on me that has lasted until today. I overheard that conversation, and there was something about that phrase, "leave it better than you find it," that really struck with me, really stuck in my mind. And that weekend, I did everything I could to try to put that principle into place, into practice. So if I saw a piece of trash on the sandy beach of the lake, I would grab it and I would go put it in one of those trash bags that my dad brought. I mean, I didn't pick up all the trash, but I just told myself, hey, I don't have to be perfect here. I don't have to leave it perfect. I just have to leave it better. And I still practice that today. I mean, in every situation where I'm self-aware enough to think about it, I ask myself, so what can I do right here to leave things a little better? Whether it's people or anything else for that matter. And it turns out that that phrase is particularly meaningful in marketing. Leave it better than you find it. So as we move through our career, we can leverage the concept of what we call marketing equity, which is the net value of a brand's marketing outputs at a single point in time, value that we create along the way to share with our audience, including the stories we tell to educate or entertain or inspire. These things should be safeguarded, organized, and even showcased. So what if tomorrow you encounter this opportunity of a lifetime? As challenging as it sounds, you know that you're perfectly qualified. The potential rewards are more than you've ever could have imagined. I mean, you're happy in your job, but I mean, this really is the opportunity of a lifetime. But here's the catch. It's down to you and one other person. And it turns out they want you to submit some sort of proof of the claims that you make about your expertise and your experience. It's the resume that Sam was talking about earlier. And you only have 1 hour to do that. Are you ready for that? Well, if you've been conscious of this idea of marketing equity, if you've been applying the philosophy of leaving it better than you find it along the way, then you've been building equity. You've been documenting and organizing your accomplishments in a portfolio of sorts. Think of the projects tab in your Spiceworks profile. I think those things are highly underutilized. By keeping an ongoing record of problems encountered and solved, the technology and skill sets leveraged, maybe the problem-solving approach that led to a positive outcome, articles that you've written for a blog, videos of talks that you've given. By doing that, you're effectively accomplishing two things. One is you're keeping yourself prepared for that new opportunity. It'll be easy for you to respond in that case. And two, if you've taken the additional step of publishing this content, whether it's your Spiceworks profile or your personal blog, LinkedIn, you're inviting opportunities to come your way. You're building a reputation with not a whole lot of incremental effort. What usually happens, though, is that we lose these valuable artifacts. I mean, I'm the poster child for it. We misplace a video. We discount the value that we provide in the forum discussion that we could have copied and somehow repackaged. We decide to take down an old blog that we used to have, and in the process, we throw away all those articles. We lose track of all those articles that we spent all that time writing at one point. Our LinkedIn profiles are incomplete or out of date. So enough about that. One of the things that I do with my clients is I help them differentiate themselves in their offerings through messaging, through what they communicate, and with which they attempt to engage their target audience. It's the you in unique value proposition. There's this idea of unique that's so critical to the strength of our brand. And it's just as true for a personal brand as it is for a corporate brand. It's if your audience doesn't see anything different about you, they simply cannot remember you. And I always think of Sam when I think of that concept and his swag all over his body. We were talking about that this morning. It's like you can't forget Sam if you've taken the time to shake his hand at a conference and get a load of all his swag. I saw him a couple days ago when we first got here, and I shook his hand, and he stuck it out, and has this sock on his arm. I said, "Oh man, what happened?" He goes, "Oh, it's just swag." I said, "All right, that's cool." So I think it's both easier and more difficult at the same time to be unique with our personal brand than it is for a company to differentiate themselves. It's easier because if we're courageous enough to use our authentic voice, it's almost impossible to not be perceived as different, as authentic. We're also different in this world. Our worldviews, our means of expressing ourselves, our sense of humor, our interests. It's harder, though, because for many of us, myself included, we may find it challenging to actually be in touch with that authentic voice. And I know some of you don't have that problem. But for people like me who do, even if we can connect with it sometimes, letting it loose can be very scary. And I think that fear is probably universal. But individuals who've developed a habit of being a peacemaker or a people pleaser, I mean, these habits require trading our own authentic voice sometimes in exchange for what we see as greater acceptance. And in time, we can forget to listen to our voice. It becomes ever and ever more difficult to hear. But the idea of authenticity, connecting with and sharing that voice, is at the very heart of personal branding. And so I think that anyone who's serious about legitimately influencing through building a stronger brand should be aware of how their authentic voice measures up. It doesn't stem from being a good person, unfortunately. It's not something that arises from good intentions. It's the manifestation of something deep within us that I don't even think we necessarily control. But there is one way that I know that works for me to help connect with my authentic voice. It helps me develop my own perspective. It helps me develop a unique opinion about the way things should or should not be. What constitutes a problem and how we should solve it, or whether or not it's even a problem that we should be solving. The best way I know to form an opinion about a topic is to write about it. I know some of you aren't writers. I'm not sure it matters. I don't have to look any further than this presentation itself for strong evidence of that. I told you that I did not buy into the idea of personal branding. Because of subtle biases that I had developed over a course of a lifetime, I honestly came to believe that any activity bordering on self-promotion was bullshit. I forced myself, though, to sit in a chair and articulate myself, and my ideas began to shift. It took a little time, but it wasn't long before I completely reversed my position. I just considered that simple logic behind the idea of strengthening our influence for the purpose of affecting some sort of change in this world. I found my voice when I couldn't intellectually support the superficial beliefs that I'd carried for years. And writing was the process through which I made that important discovery. And so through this new lens, it almost seems irresponsible to not be proactive about improving our brand. So it wasn't a trivial shift, and it only happened because I sat down to write. By the way, I sat down to write, and that's like the most important step in writing is actually sitting down and starting to write. So my new paradigm has already had an impact, and it's going to continue to have an impact. I'm standing here in front of you as if I were an expert today, feeling as though I'm an expert because I took time to work this out on paper. More than one mentor in my career has told me about this, the power of writing, and my experience has actually proved several times the value of that advice. So I hope not too many of you are disappointed if you came here for highly actionable advice on the best cadence for posting on Twitter or 5 tips for enhancing your LinkedIn profile. But what I wanted to do is to provoke some self-reflection, maybe bring a little bit of clarity around some phrases that get thrown around a lot even when people don't necessarily know what they mean, and try to connect with a part of you that says, I can do more, and I'm not going to let fear stand in my way. That could be starting a new business. It could be leading and growing your department. It could be fundraising for a nonprofit. It could be starting a new Spice Corps chapter in a new city. It could be quitting all of this and going on the road with your band. But you've got a lot to offer the world, and it's some sort of change that you want to make. So wouldn't it be cool if you could count on your personal brand to help grease the wheels? Wouldn't it be great if you could spend more time making more change as opposed to fighting the resistance? this change that you want to affect, just ask yourself the two questions. Who is it for and what value does it create for them? And now go see that, that your audience gets that. Go make some change, y'all. Thank you. Questions, anybody? Yes. Yes, you mind standing up?
So, say you've been an IT guy in place for a long time, and say you've got all the tech answers figured out, but your soft skills and people skills haven't always been fantastic. Say you can even do public speaking, super. But if you piss enough people off along the way, you have that brand damage. And the lens through which your organization sees you prevents you from taking that next step forward. Maybe you even know what you need to do to try to figure it out internally, but things just don't come out of your mouth the right way. On one hand, you might know what you need to do, but how do you have any suggestions or guidance on how to translate that actionably?
So did you say that you feel like your organization is preventing, and I'll restate this, but you feel like your organization is holding you back from doing the thing that you need to do?
Asking for a friend, hypothetically.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I have some friends too. So you bet. So let me try to restate this. You feel like, maybe there's been some damage along the way, as any of us encounter in life, through our careers or whatever. I mean, I'm real proud of this clientele that I have, most of which love me, but there's always going to be some stragglers out there that get pissed off along the way because of something that they expect that you're not willing to deliver or something like that. So what you're saying is you feel like you know what you need to do, that your friend knows what he needs to do, but his organization is just not letting him do it.
Yeah, people are elephants. If you say something 10 years ago, it will always follow or chase. Do you have any suggestions or guidance on how to get people to move off that spot so they might see you?
Yeah. So two comments come to mind. One is, this is going to happen again to your friend. And if your friend starts being conscious now about this future time and starts building some equity, starts building his portfolio, if you will, this evidence of his achievements, then he's going to have less trouble in the future dealing with it. It's not going to help him right now, but I think it's true for all of us. It's so hard to understand how we're going to face a challenge in the future that could be made easier if we would do a certain thing now. It's investing, right? It's investing for the future. The other comment that I'm thinking of, or the other thing that makes me think of, is that I think we're always, as individuals in particular, we're always going to encounter other individuals who are jealous of any opportunity or any action that we might want to take that has the possibility of putting us in a better position. I mean, people naturally want to keep you down because it keeps them up. It's just a nasty human trait. Now, many of us will be fortunate to experience leaders who don't do that, but you're always going to find somebody who wants to hold you down. I don't know what to say specifically about that.
I think if you know the situation, you can, your friend or you can handle going into that situation. So, in my younger days, right, I've been in this company 10 years that I work for now, but when I first started, I made some people mad at me. So mad that they wouldn't talk to me anymore, right? And they wouldn't put in tickets, and they wouldn't do what they need to do to get stuff fixed. They would just complain about it to my boss. I really did nothing wrong. I just followed the rules, right? But it made them mad. So he went over and talked to them and found out what was going on and kind of smooth the situation. But now that I know that they have this issue with me, I can handle that situation differently. Does that make sense? So over the course of 7 years, 10 years that I've been there, the relationship was broken, has slowly built up better because I come across as brash and I hate details. Don't tell me the details. I'm here to fix your problem. You can go on, right? They don't like that. They want the hand-holding. Well, why did Outlook stop working? I don't know. I just got it working again, right? and they don't like that. But I know that now from experience that I can go in there and be like, well, I had to rebuild the cache because it looked like something was hung up, and really just make some stuff up to make them happy. But I just get it working, and they're happy, and I walk away. So it just takes time and knowledge to handle those people with kid gloves.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of nuance in that in your friend's potential or your friend's situation, but I'd be happy to.
Am I on?
I'd be happy to take it offline and talk about it. I mean, I think that's what you probably could. He could probably benefit from is just a little quick personal coaching series of sessions to help get through a longer term situation. Sorry, I hope that's helpful.
Maybe just a comment towards that.
Sure. Can you mind standing up so people can hear you?
A comment towards that is probably all of us in this room being IT, we want to be behind the scenes and we don't like going out, and when we do, we're just like, why the hell did you break this? Is we have to like maybe humble ourselves, as you put, is we're serving them. They're our customer, is rebuilding those relationships, and with that is if there's a department or a leader or a manager that has that stigma that, oh, IT, don't mess with them, they're just going to make your day worse. Is go and make that small talk, learn about their personal life, and with that is that you break those barriers down, and then you're building that relationship and then reframing who we are to them, and then maybe go ask them if you see them walking, be like, hey, how's this going? Like, you had this issue a few weeks ago. Is it working better? Instead of just break digs, like build that personal relationship with them, and to reframe it at that point. Make yourself or make your friend more personal to them outside of you're just a keyboard person, you're just a computer guy. It's like, no, this is who I am, and I have a life. We're both people striving to meet the same objective within the company.
Sure.
And I think it all comes to becoming humble and serving that person, like how you said.
I like the way you said that.
And I don't know where you're from, but tacos helps too.
Do we have any more time?
Hi.
Okay, good.
Right.
Yep, blue shirt.
I just wanted to mention also, we all love acting but the norms don't know that. They hate actors. They think that is the most evil thing in the world. You start throwing all this other stuff out there, and makes you look superior. To them, it just makes you look arrogant.
Did you say acronyms?
Yeah.
Yeah. People hate acronyms. Exactly.
We had
A lot of times we go into acronyms, and they just turn off.
Yeah. Speak on their level.
Just a quick backstory. I actually, in my early 2000s, worked for a big software company that you guys have mentioned before, that. And I was that ass. When you're in your early 20s and you're, pretty smart and you work for a big company, you can get a pretty big head.
No.
And so, as I aged, I got to a certain point where that actually was happening, where my career was hitting those ceilings. And I pissed off more people than you can imagine. And we're talking 20, 30 people. And he worked with me at the time. I mean, the reach of my negativeness, I had no concept of that. So with some personal reflection and some people on the team kind of took me aside and said, you're kind of killing your future career. So I actually went what was referred to as the apology tour. And I literally set up meetings with anybody who anybody told me that I pissed off. And it took about 6 months. I kid you not. After the second meeting, all the people who I had pissed off along my chain were actually emailing each other. It's almost like they had a Brian Oak support group or something. I mean, it because I was so, again, we all go through this personal reflection, but I was so about hardcore fixing the issue regardless. And basically I was a CPR engineer for Microsoft, so I was fixing debugs and I was doing assembly in my head. It was basically when you're that good at what you were doing, you get a lot of arrogance, right? And that was the culture back in those days. And so you don't really realize your impact. And as I aged and actually just grew up, some people asked me, why'd you act that way? And I said, I didn't even actually understand I was acting that way. And as I've, grew up, got married, had a family, and you look back,
you don't realize some of the damage that you'd done. So I actually eventually was there 17 years, and then I retired, moved somewhere else, and now I'm actually the manager over people. And I'm actually seeing some kids who are coming in, they're real sharp, but they don't realize the damage they're doing. And so I'm relaying those experiences to them. But the thing that changed at that company was they literally called it the Brian Oaks Apology Tour. I mean, it was actually in an email thread. It was kind of funny. But I didn't realize at the time the damage I was doing. And so what fixed it for me was actually just that humbleness of scheduling meetings, seeing people lunch and just saying, I don't even remember what I did, but I'm sorry. The explanation was, I was a kid.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Brian. Humility goes a long way. Thank you all. Appreciate it very much.
Mark's available for more questions.
Yeah, I'm here if you want to talk anymore.